Hello, and thank you for watching this video on NextGen Mobile. Today we'll be reviewing the streaming text functionality with the NextGen Mobile Mobile Plus and a couple of other settings that are related to it. Right now we're on the hub on the NextGen Mobile application. I'm going to go over to the settings in the bottom right corner and click on that. This is a list of the different practices or environments that my user account has access to. Mine has multiple, but for you all, it'll typically just be one or maybe two. And in the case of a streaming text and transcription setup, you'll probably see two depending on how the setup is configured. See that this J Faircloth first initial last name ID is bolded here at the top. This is the one that I currently have selected. This is my transcription ID. And I've also got this J Faircloth streaming ID. This is for my streaming text speech to text setup. First, let me go back to the hub and show you what the traditional classic transcription looks like. I'll click on Rebecca Edwards. And this is the big red button classic transcription that is available for transcription users. You would tap on the red recording button and then use voice tags to dictate where that dictation should go to. Now I'm going to back out of this and go over to the settings again. And this time I'm going to click on J Faircloth Streaming. So first initial last name streaming. And now I flipped over to the other ID, which is set up for the streaming text speech to text. I'm in the same environment, but this is just a different ID it's set up a little bit differently. So now if I go to the hub, go to jobs, click on Rebecca Edwards. This is the same available job. I'm just looking at it differently. This ID is set up for streaming text speech to text, and so the dictation screen looks rather different. You can see the different recording buttons here at the bottom, which represent different sections that the dictation text can return to. If you were using the transcription with a big red button, you would have to vocally tag these. With the speech to text and streaming text, you have the ability to tap on the recording button, and then all the audio that you dictate there will be turned into the text, which will still return to that section. Ultimately, in terms of what's going back into NextGen, this is doing pretty much the same thing. The output is text into these fields, which end up in your final note. But the process that it follows to get there is different. With transcription, it'll be edited by an editor before the dictation hits the chart. With the speech-to-text streaming text dictation, this is self-edit. So, for example, I'm going to tap on the HPI section here. This is a test HPI for Rebecca Edwards, period. New paragraph. This is a test dictation for Rebecca. And then I'll tap the recording button again to pause. As you can see, the dictation has appeared on the screen, and now a couple of different things to think about that is particular to the streaming text. First of all, if the speech recognition consistently misses something, now in this case, I think it performed pretty well, but let's say we wanted to capture an error here. Test dictation, let's say this was not correct. So I'm going to tap into the text field here, and you can see I have the ability to make the edits for the self-edit dictation. If you would rather edit it on the mobile app as opposed to in NextGen in the chart, then you can do that here. But for our purposes, let's say this was something that the voice recognition missed and that it's regularly messing up. So I'm going to tap on here, very similar to as if I was going to be doing a copy and paste. So I'm going to select the appropriate text. Now in this case, I want to capture this here, more or less. Well, there we go. And you can see I have my options for cut and copy, but what I really want to do here is click on feedback. If you click on that, you'll get this pop-up and you'll have the ability to send feedback to our speech recognition partner. And then I would just hit submit. I'm not going to send this feedback through, but you would just make the correction or say what's missing, hit submit, and then the team will be able to work on that. That send feedback option is a good way to improve speech recognition quality in a bit of a reactive way. There's some other ways that we can improve it as well that we can look at, including proactively uploading proper names and locations. And there are some other options as well, which can be discussed further with the team. One other thing that I do want to point out, there are also some verbal commands that you can give when you've already done some of this dictation. For this example, let me go over to, or a example of this, I'm going to go over to the physical exam. Insert normal physical exam macro. So I have dictated my normal physical exam macro. Now let's say in this particular example, it's not already built in there. So let's throw in a couple of brackets. So one example of a voice command that you can do is to say next field, and then it will go to the next instance of those brackets, closed and open brackets being together. So for example, at this point, let's say I wanted to, I've done my dictation, my macro. Let's say it has the brackets in there. Now I can just tap into the dictated text, and I can click here on the recording button right here next to physical exam, such as next field, number 1, next field, number 2. So that's one example of a voice command. Let me go back to the HPI and dictate a bit further. New line, this is a new line for the dictation for Rebecca period. New paragraph, this is another dictation example, new paragraph. This is also a test, new paragraph, this is a test, period. Select line. So there's various punctuation and formatting items that can be used. There's also a list of commands. Let me see if we can get that to work. Select all. New dictation is what I'm saying now. So various things like that where you can select parts of the notes, tell it to delete this, select that, and we can send a guide of some of those commands over as well. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and back out of this dictation, and now I'm going to go to the settings and scroll down. There are some settings that are particular to the streaming text speech to text that I do want to point out. And once you set these, we would advise this to maximize your performance. And these are not things you have to be concerned with transcription, but they are good for using the speech to text. So you can see that there is an offline streaming text option. We would suggest clicking on this cloud icon here and doing the download. As it does that, when you download the offline streaming text, we advise this to maximize performance because ultimately the NextGen mobile application is using an active internet connection to do the speech recognition. And if that internet connection is interrupted, that can cause issues with the speech recognition continuing. So to maximize your experience of that, we would suggest that you download the offline streaming text. So now that's completed. You see that check mark is there. And I'm also going to click off always use offline streaming text. And so we would suggest using that to maximize the performance when you're using the NextGen mobile streaming text, speech to text dictation. So we've talked about switching between different IDs in the NextGen mobile application if you are set up with both classic transcription and a separate ID for streaming text dictation, as well as taking a look at the differences on the dictation screen, and in particular to streaming text, some of the functionality there, including dictating on different sections, and talking about the difference between the tap tags on that dictation screen versus the vocal tags with classic transcription. We've looked at the sending feedback option. We've talked about offline streaming data, and also introduced the idea of the vocal commands you can give to navigate through the dictation screen with NextGen Mobile. Thank you very much for your attention. Have a great rest of your day.